Most of the Chinese films to date have been very superficial and one-dimensional. Bruce Lee's original concept for the game of death was to attempt to educate the movie audience. Creating awareness of different types of martial art and the advantages each of these may have in certain environments and situations. Bruce Lee also wanted to place on film his personal expression of martial art. Jeet Kune Do. He wanted a movie that would resonate on many different levels. At present I am working on a script for my next film. I haven't really decided on the title yet, but what I want to show is the necessity to adapt oneself to changing circumstances. The inability to adapt brings destruction. I already have the first scene in my mind. As the film opens, the audience sees a wide expanse of snow. Then the camera closes in on a clump of trees while the sounds of a strong gale fill the screen. There is a huge tree in the center of the screen and it is all covered with thick snow. Suddenly there is a loud snap and a huge branch of the tree falls to the ground. It cannot yield to the force of the snow, so it breaks. Then the camera moves to a willow tree, which is bending with the wind. Because it adapts itself to the environment, the willow survives. It is this sort of symbolism which I think Chinese action films should seek to have. In this way I hope to broaden the scope of action films. I would like to evolve into different roles, but I cannot do so in Southeast Asia. I am already typecast. I am supposed to be the good guy. I can't even be a bit grey, because no producer would let me. I want to direct more films. Directing, I feel, is more creative. You really get to produce the result you want. An actor is restricted. He can only do as the director instructs. One must always strive to be better. The sky's the limit. A film to end all films. Bruce Lee. Background information. Bruce Lee had reputedly become enamored with the concept of using a pagoda sequence while scouting locations for an earlier movie project, The Silent Flute, in the early 1970s in Goa and Nepal. The original plot involved Bruce Lee's character, as well as 4 other martial artists, 2 of which were played by James Tien and Kie Yuan, fighting their way through a 5-level pagoda, encountering a different challenge on each floor. The setting of the pagoda was at Beepjusa Temple in Somnasan National Park in South Korea. The pagoda, called Palsangjeon, is the only remaining wooden pagoda in South Korea. At the base of the pagoda they fight a small army of poorly trained lackeys, while inside the pagoda, they encounter a different opponent on each floor, each more challenging than the last. Although his allies try to help out, they are handily defeated, and Lee must face each of the martial artists in one-on-one combat. He defeats Filipino martial arts master Dan Inosanto, Hapkido master Jihan Jae, and finally Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who fights with a free and fluid style mirroring Lee's Jeet Kune Do. Kareem's character has great size and strength in addition to a fighting style as potent as Lee's. He can only be defeated once Lee recognizes his one weakness and unusual sensitivity to light. Lee smashes the surrounding windows, weakening him with exposure to daylight, and finally manages to kill him. Although the pagoda was supposed to have 5 floors, complete scenes were only shot for 3 of the floors: the Palace of the Tiger, where Lee faced Inosanto; the Palace of the Dragon, where he fought Jihan Jae; and the final floor, where he fought Abdul-Jabbar. Hapkido master Ing Sik Fang was slated to play the guardian of the first floor, a master of a kick-oriented style. While Bruce's longtime student Taki Kimura was asked to play the guardian of the second floor, a stylist of praying mantis kung fu. However, no footage has been discovered of these floors. The goal of the film's plot was to showcase Lee's beliefs regarding the principles of martial arts. As each martial artist is defeated, including Lee's allies, the flaws in their fighting style are revealed. Some, like Dan Inozento's character, rely too much on fixed patterns of offensive and defensive techniques, while others lack economy of motion. Lee defeats his opponents by having a fighting style that involves fluid movement, unpredictability, and an eclectic blend of techniques. Gamer Death Project had embarked the Buddhist temple of Beepjasa, housed in Korea's Songasan National Park, as a suitable external location for the movie. The Popjusa temple was built in 553 AD and has a 5-story pagoda and a massive 108 feet high, single-mold bronze statue of the Maitreya Buddha, the largest figure in the Orient. Somnasan, meaning remote from the mundane world mountains, has one of the largest, most magnificent temple sites in Korea. Bruce Lee completed over 30 minutes of edited footage for the 3 completed fight scenes in Gamer Death. The scenes resonate on many different levels, portraying martial arts in a hitherto unseen light and producing the most dynamic and graceful examples of hand-to-hand fighting ever portrayed on screen. While working in these fight scenes, Bruce Lee was visited on the set by Warner Brothers envoy, Fred Weintraub. Weintraub persuaded Bruce Lee and Raymond Chow to co-produce a Hollywood, Hong Kong movie that eventually be released as Enter the Dragon. Bruce Lee had no alternative but to temporarily shelf production of Gamer Death. Following successful completion and post-production for Enter the Dragon in May 1973, Bruce Lee returned to Gamer Death Project. He did not film any additional footage, instead electing to concentrate on refining the casting and script. On Friday the 20th of July 1973, Bruce Lee and Raymond Chow had a restaurant appointment in Hong Kong's Hyatt Hotel with George Lazenby and Betty Ting Pei. Lazenby claims that Bruce had already shown him over 20 minutes of footage from Gamer Death. The meeting would discuss future roles. Bruce didn't arrive. He called en route to Ting Pei from apartment. While there, Bruce developed a severe headache and Ting Pei offered him a painkiller tablet, Equagesic, a form of strong headache medication. After taking the pill, Bruce Lee rested but quickly lost consciousness, from which he never recovered. Bruce Lee pronounced dead on arrival at Elizabeth Hospital. Following his death, Gamer Death footage that Bruce Lee had completed remained edited and was placed in semi-permanent storage in Golden Harvest Studio vaults. Storyline. According to Bruce Lee's original concept in his 12-page storyline script, Bruce Lee cast himself as a retired undefeated martial art champion by the name of Hai Tien. He was approached by members of a Korean underworld to take a lead in a daring raid on a 5-story pagoda said to contain valuable treasures on the highest top level. When Hai Tien refuses, his sister and younger brother are kidnapped by the gang, so he has no option but to take part in the raid. At a briefing arranged at the gang leader's home, where Hai Tien is introduced to his prospective accomplices in the raid, who are all highly advanced martial artists. James Tien and Hong Kong's stunt man Kie Yuan. The Korean gang leader screens a movie of the team, illustrating the difficulties in and around the pagodas surrounding villages. So martial arts mercenaries guard the external pagoda grounds unarmed. Inside the pagoda, a lone martial art expert guards each level. The team is instructed to fight its way to the top of the pagoda and retrieve the treasure. Retrospective. As in Bruce Lee's diagram above, there are clearly 5 floors, 6 if you wish to include the ground level. The group are led by Bruce Lee, who face a number of stuntmen, who are guarding the exterior of the structure. At the base of the pagoda they fight a small army of poorly trained lackeys. Whilst inside the pagoda, they encounter a different opponent on each floor, each more challenging than the last. Exterior of pagoda. Before the first level, which was to be guarded by actor Hwang In-sik, the exterior of the pagoda would be guarded by Bolo Yung aka Yang Zi. Bolo had appeared in Enter the Dragon in the Warner Brothers and Golden Harvest co-production blockbuster movie. Bolo would be guarding the exterior with a number of other karate villains using the art of Shotokan karate. Bolo appears in the notes Bruce Lee had wrote, below in red. Bruce Lee reassured Bolo that he would be sure to kill him in his next film, The Game of Death. Unfortunately, 10 days after that promise was made, before post-production on Enter the Dragon was finished, Bruce Lee died aged 32 years old. Gate to Enlightenment. The first level was to be guarded by actor Hwang In-sik, portraying a master from a kicking style of martial art. Hwang had appeared opposite Bruce Lee in The Way of the Dragon. Temple of the Praying Mantis. For the second level, Bruce Lee had chosen elder Junfan Gung Fu instructor Taki Kimura, who would utilize Praying Mantis Gung Fu with elements of Wing Chun. Taki would guard the Temple of Praying Mantis. Sadly, Bruce Lee was unable to film any pagoda fight scenes involving either of these two men. Although he did send Taki Kimura an airline ticket and filmed external screen test footage of Hwang In-sik on location in Hong Kong's territories. Bruce Lee had shot external footage of Dan Inozentu and Jihan Jae in this new territory's location. Stills from this era depict that Bruce Lee himself was present during the filming at the locale. Temple of the Tiger. For the third level, Bruce Lee had chosen his senior instructor from Los Angeles, Dan Inozentu, portraying Filipino martial arts. Dan appears with Bruce in a spectacular nunchaku versus nunchaku duel, which is conceptually unique to this movie. Temple of Gold. For the fourth level, Bruce Lee had chosen Grandmaster Jihan Jae, who was a 7-degree black belt in Hapkido. Temple of the Unknown. Finally, the guardian of the fifth floor, Bruce Lee had chosen an NBA basketball player and student Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who reached at an incredible 7 feet 4 inches tall. Bruce thought this would create a great dynamic in the film. Jabbar represents an unknown style of unarmed combat symbolizing the highest level of martial arts. This was the essence of Bruce Lee's own philosophy of martial arts, Jeet Kune Do. Jabbar's character would however have an Achilles heel, photosensitivity to light. Bruce Lee's character would tear panes from the pagoda windows to gain momentary advantage over his opponent and enable defeat. Bruce Lee's character in The Game of Death is dressed in a one-piece yellow tracksuit symbolizing no affiliation with any style of martial art. The master of Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's character despises the system of traditional martial arts and adapts to whatever he encounters. His character is like water, flowing to whatever the deadly surroundings are. Many of the other martial artists in Game of Death wore traditional martial arts costumes. while Bruce wears the opposite famous yellow and black tracksuit. Which is to show imagination rising above tradition. Bruce Lee's character believes that the martial artist has to be better than the martial tradition. Bruce brings two weapons along with him. A pair of yellow nunchakus, and a bako, which is a thin bamboo stick. James Tien. James is the pretty city boy who sports his everyday clothing on the mission. As a great martial artist who has a great background in kung fu and different types of street fighting, there is still a downfall to this man. He still goes by the martial tradition. Like Bruce said, a man has to be flexible and adaptable, otherwise he will be destroyed. But James usually goes his own way and has enough self-pride not to listen to Bruce's important advice. Kie Yuan. Kie is the totally opposite of Bruce's character. If Bruce was water, Kie was stone. As we all know, water flows through practically anything, but stone has its limits. Kie is dressed in his traditional dark karate outfit, unlike Bruce's modern-day yellow and black tracksuit. Xi's character is the emotional, worried fighter that has his doubts and is full of negative thoughts throughout this mission. George Lazenby. Rumor number 1. A street fighting expert who knows no martial arts whatsoever. Even though this guy has his way with using his street smarts to survive, it will be useless on this deadly island. He is also a very good marksman with his guns, but don't forget, you can't get anywhere near the island because there are metal searches, like ones at the airports. So that means, no knives, no guns or any other deadly weapons. Robert Wall. Rumor number 2. Another expert just like Kie Yuan, this American fighter won't stay away from the traditional way of fighting. Although, this fighter is one of the America's best. He still has to question himself, is he good enough to face what is waiting for him on the deadly island? This is not any American karate tournament, this is a deadly game where you either win or lose. How does the raid party arrive at the pagoda? Bruce Lee's script notes have it that the raid party are driven there by bus. See the lower section of the below image marked in red. Source: Bruce Lee's script notes, as presented in A Warrior's Journey, p.89. Author John Little. Why did Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wear sunglasses? His character was photosensitive. Shafts of light through broken panes in the pagoda walls contribute greatly to his eventual defeat in his battle with a weary Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's script notes also refer to Jabbar's upper-level guardian as Mantis. Two different shots of Kareem's eyes lend weight to the possibility of the character being some sort of creature. Source: A Warrior's Journey, p.225 226260. Author, John Little. Sammo hung in Game of Death? Sammo reportedly waited for the call to play his part in Game of Death. But he never came. Having decided he'd waited long enough, he began working on a film only for Bruce Lee to contact him to say he was ready to shoot scenes. Sammo's hands were tied and as a direct result the two men fell out for a while. Eventually patching things up, Sammo and Bruce Lee appeared together in the opening sequences of Enter the Dragon. Source: Sammo Hung Interview. Jade Screen Volume 1 Issue Number 2, p.7. Author, Richard Cooper. The Leading Lady? Though our transcripts are Bruce Lee's Game of Death notes, there are references to Nora Miao's role as Bruce Lee's sister, These are made up of pre-pagoda scenes that also feature James Tien, a child and a big boss type figure. For example of this, see the source above of the script notes from the raid party, again marked in red. I'd say Bruce Lee's own notes are difficult to refute where casting is concerned. Nora Miao was one of Bruce Lee's leading ladies of choice and her inclusion seems obvious. Note the picture of Nora Miao with Bruce Lee holding the nunchaku he uses in the film, a picture I speculate was taken around the time of Game of Death's production. It's difficult for me to grasp why Betty Ting Pei would be in the sister role, having never been cast in a Bruce Lee film prior to this.